Jesse is here. He is fired up. He is ready to go. And you know what that means? You know what I'm going to ask you? Are you ready for rapid fire?
2 days in a row. Let's take this show home with some rapid fire.
All right, we'll drive it down the stretch. We'll keep the quarterback talk going a little bit here at the start of rapid fire. Marcus Freeman asked at his press conference today what he saw in CJ Carr and Kenny Minchey that gives him confidence that he can start a quarterback that has at most 3 passes in a college game. And here's what he said.
There's a lot of things, decision making. Are you making the right decisions is probably the most important thing. Delivering the ball, the ability to create plays, maybe when things are breaking down, and taking care of the football. Like those are things that we really, really evaluate, and they've done a tremendous job at doing that. You've heard me say this before. I try not to be so outcome driven. What's completion percentage? Because so many things go into that, right? But hey, are we making the right decisions? Are we making the right checks? Are we eliminating self-inflicted wounds? And ultimately, are we taking care of the football? And I thought all of our quarterbacks really did a good job at doing that.
So there it is. I mean, you hear what he says that he saw from these guys. Scale of 1 to 10. What's your concern, Jess, with starting a quarterback with no experience in a road game opener?
Yeah, scale of 1 to 10. I'm not really too worried about this. I'd give this a 3 out of 10. And the reason I say that is I'm always a proponent of, the young guy. My analogy for this would be like, say, that Duke held back Cooper Flagg because they didn't think he was ready. The guy reclassified and became basically a super freshman. I know it's a little bit harder in football, but CJ Carr has still had some time at Notre Dame. He's been a part of the team. He's been a part of the offense. He's been submersed in it. So talent is talent. When he gets out there and throws the ball, it's going to take care of itself. That's on the coaching staff to ultimately have him prepared.
This whole experience thing is just so overblown. I don't think maybe we've heard quite as much pushback on it since Steve Angeli entered the transfer portal, because it is what it is at this point. And let's just be honest. If they didn't have the kind of confidence that they have in both of these guys, they would have tried to hold on to Steve Angeli, and Angeli would be on track to be the starting quarterback. And, it just goes back to this whole idea that, like they would have started Steve Angeli in the opener. And then, because of his negligible experience that he has, negligible means a little bit of experience advantage that he has over these other two guys. Talent is talent. And, as Brian says, when it comes to coaching, either you have the chops or you don't. And I think it applies to these guys as well. Either they have the chops or they don't. And they're confident in these guys. The fact that they didn't have any more experience than what they did, and the fact that Marcus Freeman, Gino Guidugli, Mike Denbrock have the confidence in both of these guys and ultimately put them ahead of Steve Angeli, I think says a lot about them, a lot about both of them, both Carr and Minchey. And again, like you go back to the fact that once either Carr or Minchey, whoever wins the job, starts against Miami in the season opener, they're going to have as many career starts as Steve Angeli. So it's not like he's got so much more experience than either one of these guys. It was a little bit of experience. And ultimately, both of these guys have a lot more talent than Angeli. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the equation, I think the whole experience factor cancels out, like you said. Angeli has one more start than these guys, but the thing that tips this equation is the skill that you talked about, and that's obviously what Notre Dame is interested in. And to me, it's really no different than the Riley Leonard situation last year, because Riley Leonard, like CJ Carr and Kenny Minchey, is a tremendous athlete in my opinion and possesses a lot of good abilities and skills. But they basically gave Riley Leonard a crash course on the offense and got him to play quarterback within probably a shorter amount of time, considering the injuries that Riley Leonard had. And so, I know the counter argument to that would be, he played elsewhere and that sort of thing, but it was a new system. It was a complete overhaul. It was a new quarterback. And if you felt if you felt good about Riley Leonard last year, there's no reason not to feel good about CJ Carr this season. I guess I think the way I'm trying to put it.
Yeah, I mean, to your point now, both of these guys, Carr and Minchey, have more experience under Mike Denbrock. They've got a full year now than what Riley Leonard had coming in the door when they were trying to learn each other and all that. So I think that both Denbrock, Gaduli, Freeman have a much better feel for both of these guys, having been able to watch them in practice, go through a full season with them, seeing the reps that they were getting. Because let's remember, like, even though you might only be getting a handful of snaps in practice over the course of the season, when Leonard is the number one and Angeli is the number two, they've still got film on these guys, and they're breaking them down and evaluating them and giving them feedback over the course of the season. So I'm not concerned about it at all. My concern level would be a 1 if I'm going 1 to 10. It is so slight that it barely hits a blip on the radar. So Freeman also said today that center Ashton Craig is expected to be able to go through summer conditioning with the Irish after missing all but the first 3 games of last season due to a torn ACL. Scale of 1 to 10, how big is that news?
That's 10 out of 10 big for me. That's your starting center. That's a guy that's got, a good amount of experience. To me, the center is the anchor of the offensive line. He's the commander of the offensive line. He touches the ball every play, just like the quarterback does. So, in terms of how important that is, I think not only having him at center is the best option, but it also, I think, allows you to let Charles Jagasaw, Emil Wagner, everyone else around them play in their position that is also going to maximize their potential across the offensive line as well. And so it starts with Ashton Craig. Having him at center allows you to have what I would consider the best offensive line unit when you're trying to piece together everything else. But it starts with him at center.
10 out of 10 for me as well. There's a reason that Pat Coogan hit the transfer portal after the season and headed down to Indiana. And it's because that he knew and the coaching staff knew that Ashton Craig was coming back. And when Craig did come back, he was going to be the number 1. And I mean, you've got now the possibility of having Ashton Craig and Charles Jagasaw and Emil Wagner and Billy Schrouth and potentially Anthony Knapp all on the same offensive line now as well. Like, think about that. We never got to see that unit together last year. And oh, by the way, you still have Gerby Lambert potentially waiting in the wings for when he gets healthy, because Freeman also said today that, the prognosis is a little bit longer for Lambert, but they do expect him to potentially be back by the time training camp starts after having the shoulder surgery for the labrum. So maybe he's battling for a job. Sullivan Absher, we talked about him, Vince and I, on the show earlier this week about, how he was backing up at center. So those are probably your top 7 offensive linemen right there. And having Craig back to anchor that offensive line with all those other guys around him is just literally and figuratively huge for Notre Dame. So a little bit more from Marcus Freeman today. The House settlement that continues to linger out there as we wait on that, still not finalized, but college football is getting closer to having a 105-man roster limit for the upcoming season. Freeman talked about how many scholarships the Irish will have if and when it gets to that 105-man roster limit.
Be able to, when we talk actual scholarship numbers, I think we're probably around 95 if it gets to the 105 limit. But if we need to find a way to make sure there's more guys that don't have to pay for school, we have a plan to do that too. But actual scholarship numbers, right now the plan would be around 95.
So 95 for 105. You good with that number?
I think I'm good with that number. I think you'll probably know a little bit more. I'm not too savvy about where the roster has been, where it's been, what this ultimately means. But to me, it sounds good on paper. It looks good. I think having 95 scholarships makes sense. And then, basically the 10 walk-on spots after that is what I would imagine. So,
well, there are no more walk-ons though. That's
okay.
The thing. The walk-ons count against the 105. So the point being, so like the way I'm kind of looking at this is I'm doing the math. There's been an 85-man scholarship limit forever. Basically, you could have 85, not forever, but like 40 years, 35 years, something like that. Whenever the 85-man, scholarship limits switched. So 85 on scholarship, and then obviously you could have however many walk-ons you wanted on top of that. And kind of where Notre Dame has been from a total roster number the last few years is like between 115 and 120, somewhere in there. So you've had 85 on scholarship and then roughly 30 more walk-ons after that, 25 to 30 more walk-ons after that. So now if this 105-man limit comes through, that means that you can only have 105. You can't go past that number anymore. And all of those guys, all 105 are potential, like they've got to get some kind of scholarship money, basically. So kind of the way I'm looking at it, and this is the way it's been explained before. Now, this is, again, all still subject to change. The first 85 are still full scholarship guys, but guys number 86 through 105, you could give either partial or full scholarships to, depending on what you do. So if I'm looking, listening to what Marcus Freeman is saying, and you've got 95 total scholarships, that to me means that those last 20 guys, you could split up scholarships for those guys. You could give them 50% if you want. You could potentially give somebody 75% if you want, or obviously a full if you want. It's kind of like baseball has been with the 11.7 scholarships forever. They've had 11.7 full scholarships that you've had to split among like 30 to 35 guys, depending on how many you have on your roster. So that's kind of how I'm envisioning they would do it. Like they would give essentially partial scholarships to roster spots number 86 through 105. And then, as he said, there are some other things that they could do. And again, like baseball has had to be creative, and they've got, like academic money that they can give and different things like that. So like, it feels to me like that's probably the way this is going to be going here in the near future anyway.
Yeah, it sounds like you'll have your bank of full ride scholarships, your 4 and 5 star recruits, let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
And you'll have your second bank of partial scholarships. And, those are guys, not as high on the 4 or 5 star, but like you said, there's different ways, and especially at Notre Dame where academics is, considered so heavily, these guys can find different ways to get money elsewhere. And by the time it's all said and done, you can kind of package together, some sort of, full scholarship. And that's the thing too, is like best case for Notre Dame is you get a 5 star who's like has a 4.0 GPA as well, because then he doesn't have to take the full on, full scholarship in football. He can make some of that up in some of the academic. Like when I was going to school, that was the way I had it. Like I packaged together like 3 or 4 different, funds of money, and it frees up more scholarships for everyone else. So I guess what I'm saying is, the smarter you are, the more scholarships it frees up for everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, as long as it's paid for, right?
Yeah.
Like, and
doesn't matter where it's coming from.
Yeah. And that's where potentially, again, they might have to work a little bit harder on the Notre Dame side, just to figure out, okay, because you've got to be academic qualifiers anyway. So I would imagine everyone's going to probably qualify. Most everyone is going to qualify for some kind of academic money. So there are just other options out there, and it's just a matter of, maybe you've got to be a little bit more creative getting it done, but they can fund, up to that 105-man limit. And I don't think anyone wants to have fewer than 105 on the roster if they can help it. Especially, I mean, like you look at how things went from an injury standpoint for Notre Dame this season. A lot of guys came in handy. Yep, that's right. To get through a long season, that's for sure. Fill in the blank. The Rose Bowl will be a college football playoff quarterfinal game on New Year's Day at the end of this season. It's blank that after years of insisting on kicking off at 5 p.m. Eastern time, the Rose Bowl game will kick off at 4 o'clock Eastern time this year to allow the Sugar Bowl quarterfinal to start at 8 o'clock Eastern time.
Yeah, to me, it simply boils down to just straight hypocrisy. That's that's what college football, I think, like you say you can't move the time, but now that it fits better for your schedule and you can start to make more money and it allows you to, a more advantageous slot or spot, I think that's ultimately what it's coming down to.
The sunset, Jesse. The sunset. We had to get this, you had to get that sunset on TV at halftime, and like the timing was always perfect. I mean, they finally came to their senses. I think it's like if the Sugar Bowl, or not the Sugar Bowl, if the Rose Bowl wanted to continue to be part of the rotation, there was going to have to be some compromise. I mean, people can still see the sunset. It'll just be an hour later, but it'll still occur during the broadcast. It's not the end of the world if we don't see the sunset, during the Rose Bowl. I think it's about time they did it. And I've actually seen some people who were upset that the Rose Bowl has actually had to do this, move their time up an hour earlier. It's like, it's 2025. Things are changing. It's not still 1925. The world doesn't stay the same. A century has passed by, and you've got to adjust with the times. And that's part of what the Rose Bowl ultimately had to do.
Those people would probably be friends with Andrew Kristofic, if I had to imagine. just people who don't like to see things change.
That's right. Andrew is pounding the table. No change. They should have kept it at 5:00. Never change. I think Vince kind of is in that boat as well.
Oh, Vince and Andrew hang out together. They share a lot of the same ideology.
Yep. Andrew could easily take Vince to Primanti Brothers in Pittsburgh and make Vince very happy. Maybe that's where Jesse's going to be buying Vince and I dinner here sometime in the near future.
We don't got to keep talking about this. Speaking of changing things, I've been pitching my MLB extra innings idea to people, and I'm getting a lot of positive feedback on it. And I've been the last couple of days, I went to the Guardians and Yankees games down in Cleveland, and I've been just randomly kind of talking to some fans here and there, some coworkers, and I'm like, so what do we think of this idea? I think a lot of people are liking it.
Idea. What do you think about this? Oh yeah, I'd love that. How many brews in are they when you pitch them this idea?
Me, 0 brews. Them, I can't say how many they've had.
Okay. NFL draft, of course, starts Thursday, runs through Saturday. Over under 2.5 quarterbacks that get drafted in the first round Thursday night.
This is a sharp line. I think you can only say definitely one quarterback is going to get drafted. And what makes this 2.5 line so hard is it's so situational. Like the quarterbacks after that are only going to be situationally selected. And so like Cam Ward is going 1-1 overall. Like Tennessee is taking Cam Ward with the first pick. So
it's the only guarantee we've got is Cam Ward 1-1. That's right.
And so after that, let's kind of go down the thought process here. If there were 2 more quarterbacks that were going to be selected in the first round, you basically have Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, and maybe Louisville quarterback Tyler. I can never say his name. Shuck. Those are the 4. I mean, you could probably knock down Shuck, and it really becomes Sanders, Dart, and Milroe. And it's like, is New Orleans and the Steelers going to take a quarterback? That's who's ultimately going to drive this decision, in my opinion. I think that I think somehow the Steelers are going to end up with Shedeur Sanders. So that gives you 2. I don't see Jackson Dart going in the first round, nor Jalen Milroe. And so long story short, I have to take the under on this, but it's going to be really hairy. And you could Shedeur Sanders might not even make it in the first round,
Like, why do you keep calling him Sanders? And that's the thing. Like, Sanders, he is such a hot button right now in terms of what's going to happen with him. I just feel like there's no way he's getting past the Pittsburgh Steelers. We were talking about the Steelers quarterback situation yesterday with Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson as their 2 quarterbacks. I just can't see the Steelers letting him get by them. They sit there at 21. You know, there's talk that they could move up. There's just like so much talk about what could happen. Like, and then I'm sitting here and I'm watching um ESPN and Peter Schrager, and he was like, the people he's been talking to as he's done his mock draft, he's hearing that the Giants could potentially trade up late in the first round with somebody and try to grab Jackson Dart. And it just feels like you're better off just waiting for the second round to come around than reaching up into the first round to get Jackson Dart. And by the way, I know we've got some Giants fans in here, Michael and Joseph are, you know, like first and foremost, the two that I think about. Like, if the Giants go for Jackson Dart in this draft, I'm like, have at it. Have at it. Go for it. Go for it, big boys. Knock yourselves out. But I'm with you. I'm going under. I think it's only going to be Hart and Sanders when it's all said and done.
If the Giants would be so stupid to take a quarterback, you just got Russell. Like, to me, acquiring Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston buys you another year or two on the drafting a quarterback clock. Like, let's just chill out on that for a little bit. Maybe stockpile some of the positions around. Let a veteran quarterback carry you through some seasons for a little bit, and then when you do go with a quarterback, you don't put him in a crappy situation like you did with Daniel Jones, with just bad all around, you know, bad offensive line, bad wide receivers, bad defense. Why don't you get stronger at some positions, buy some time with Russell Wilson and Jameis, and then come back to like this quarterback draft class isn't impressive either. So don't waste a first round pick on Jackson Dart. Like, I shouldn't even be giving this advice as an NFL East rival. Like, I should just be saying, go for it. Take Jackson Dart.
That's what I'm saying. Knock yourself out if you want to. But if I'm the Giants, I'm not drafting a quarterback in the first round. I'm definitely not losing any draft picks to trade up into the first round to get Dart. I would wait for the second round is where I would get him, Milroe, anyone not named Ward or Sanders. I would not pick one in the first round. So, speaking of Sanders, Adam Schefter from ESPN says that short of Pittsburgh's Mike Tomlin, any other coach who drafts Shedeur Sanders better be comfortable within his organization, because if that team struggles and the fan base is calling for a coaching change, speculation is going to start to kick up about Deion Sanders taking his job. Are you buying or selling what Adam Schefter is saying about that?
I'm 100% buying this. If you're going to draft Shedeur Sanders, you need three things. You need a strong-skinned coach. You need a thick-skinned owner. And you need, basically, you can't be a team that's in the middle of, you couldn't be like a Bears right now, like a team that is just cycling through, or a Jaguars or you know, the Panthers, teams that are constantly switching through coaches, ownership,
coaches and quarterbacks.
You can't, it's just not going to go well. And the reason why it would go well with Mike Tomlin and the Steelers is because that is a reputable organization. They've had like two coaches all time. They have an ownership that just actually believes in their coaching, supports their coaching. It's just, as much as I dislike the Steelers, they're one of the best run organizations in all of football. Like, the 49ers could probably get away with something like that. They're a really good run or well-run organization. The Dallas Cowboys would be the last place that you'd want him to go, because Jerry Jones would sell into the chat or into the talk as well. Like, he'd be a part of it. You know what I mean? He'd be like, oh, that gets more views, more money. Let's talk about Shedeur Sanders some more. So yeah, what Schefter is saying completely makes sense. Like, you have to have a very stable and thick-skinned coach and organization if you're going to draft Shedeur Sanders, because as soon as things go wrong, they're going to be calling for your job. And they're going to be saying, well, just bring Deion to town, you know?
That's exactly it.
He did it in Colorado. As whatever you want to say about Deion, he spun it around at Colorado, and he did it with his son at quarterback. There's proof in the pudding that he can get the job done.
And he's also the only coach that Shedeur has ever had. And so if you draft Shedeur and you're struggling, it's the logical leap to go, well, let's just bring in Deion. Things worked out when Deion was coaching him, and look at what he's done at Colorado and everything else. And yeah, it's like, you know, the standard is the standard, Mike Tomlin, and you better have Teflon skin like Mike Tomlin, because the rest of these guys, you know, like, If you're the New York Jets, no. If you are, like go down the list. I think you said like the Jacksonville Jaguars. No. If you are Seattle, like not that Seattle's going to draft him. If you're New Orleans and you've got a first-time head coach, Kellen Moore, that is not a situation that I would want to put my first-time head coach, Kellen Moore, in. Not at all.
I wouldn't either. There's probably like I said, maybe 4 or 5 spots that would make sense. And probably half of those teams don't need quarterbacks because you know why?
Right.
They're a well-run organization.
Because they're well-run organizations. That's right. That's exactly right. So, yeah, I really do feel like Pittsburgh probably is the only organization that could really fully take that on. Maybe
it's a marriage of
Sean
both.
McVay would be, or like O'Connell, but neither one of them are probably, going to be looking for it.
Right. It's the perfect marriage of both. Who's a stable, strong organization, and who also needs a young, talented quarterback. The Steelers, and they're not getting Cam Ward. If they could take Cam Ward, they take Cam Ward.
Absolutely. All right. I couldn't get through the rapid fire the day before the NFL draft without a Cowboys question. So for all of you who, get mad when we talk Cowboys, this is the final question of the night. Just letting you know.
Off if you need to.
Just letting you know. Brian Baldinger says the Cowboys should trade up to the number 5 pick from number 12 by trading their 2nd and 5th round picks to get Ashton Genty. Do you buy or sell that idea?
100% buy. And I'll tell you, I'll give you like 3 strong reasons why. 1, Brian Baldinger is the man. I like in terms of like NFL analyst, he is like on my top list of guy just knows football.
Straight shooting, no dope, Brian Baldinger.
All he does is watch film. And so like I know what he's watching the Cowboys, and if he's saying the Cowboys need another Zeke type running back, then let's get this thing going, right? And so number 2, I'm not keen on taking running backs in the first round unless it's a generational talent. Ezekiel Elliott was a generational talent. I see a lot of Ashton Genty and I see a lot of Ezekiel Elliott in Ashton Genty. And the next and most final point would be, when was Dak Prescott and the Cowboys really at their best? His rookie year, Zeke's rookie year, they had a strong running game. It took a lot of the pressure off of Dak. I know that a lot of people are going to come for Dak. He's not a top 5 quarterback in this league. He's still a good quarterback, but he needs some sort of help. He has proven that he can't be the guy to shoulder the entire load. He needs some sort of offensive help, whether that's a top-end running back, whether that's a complement to CeeDee Lamb at wide receiver. They need another explosive piece on this offense. And I think Ashton Genty is the next great – he could win Rookie of the Year wherever he goes, in my opinion. And so you combine those things, you get better on the offensive line. I think Dak and CD's game opens up a bit more because you're able to run the ball. I think all things start to function a lot better when you run the ball. And so why not get the best running back?
The Cowboys historically, when they have been an elite team, is when they have had that elite running game going. You can go all the way back, Dwayne Thomas to Tony Dorsett to Emmitt Smith, obviously. And then, you mentioned, Ezekiel Elliott, even though they weren't an elite organization, elite team, when they were playing their best, that's when the offensive line was still the offensive line down there. That's completely gone now. And Zeke Elliott is obviously completely gone, but that's when things have run the best. So, I agree with that aspect of it. It just feels like the Cowboys just always have so many needs in the draft that it's hard to also give up your picks. Pick. That's right. Like, I wouldn't mind giving up a 2nd round pick next year, or even like a 3rd next year, like something like that. It's hard to give up picks right now because they've always got so many needs that they've got to immediate needs that they've got to fill with the draft. They need a running back, they need a receiver, and they need an offensive lineman. And, like Peter Schrager, who again is using his sources to do his latest mock draft, he is mocking the offense, a guard from Alabama going to the Cowboys with the number 12 pick.
I
now.
don't mind. I've always told you this. I have nothing wrong. I have in the first round, if nothing sexy is there, if Genty isn't there, if the Arizona wide receiver isn't there, you cannot go wrong with an offensive lineman. You can never go wrong with a top tier offensive lineman in the NFL. I know it's not the fans' favorite pick in the first round. I know it's not, super flashy, but it gets the job done. What did Jim Harbaugh do last year, baby? He took our boy Joe Alt. And look what happened. Justin Herbert didn't get hurt last year for the first time in 2 or 3 seasons. He actually played a full season. So with Dak getting older, with trying to take some responsibility off of him, let's protect him more. Let's give him more time in the pocket. I'm okay with that. I am just too. Don't reach. Don't reach. That's all I care about. Don't reach.
I agree. It's not sexy, but it fills a huge need that they have. And I think Jerry Jones was kind of alluding to it earlier this week in that press conference that it's kind of like a chicken or an egg kind of thing. Does the running back make, the thing go, or does the offensive line make the running back go? Now, you still need more talent in the running back room than what they've got. And so, like, if they go offensive line at number 12, that means you've got to take a running back with your second round pick. You can't wait.
But there's a deep running back class. So that wouldn't, you go, let's hypothetically, you get a good offensive lineman, you get that guard from Bama, and then you get maybe Judkins in round 2 or Trayvon Henderson, or there's a lot of good running backs in this draft to pick from. It's Ashton Genty, and if you don't get Ashton Genty, everyone else in that next tier is relatively the same.
So you like it? You like offensive line over either McMillan from Arizona, the wide receiver, or Golden, the receiver from Texas?
I think so. I really don't like taking those wide receivers early on. It's 50-50. I mean, they got CeeDee Lamb obviously worked out for them, but I mean, there's a lot of wide receivers taken in the first round over the last 5 years who just don't ever pan out. You have to hit on your first round pick. You have to.
Yeah.
You have, especially, and when you're the Dallas Cowboys, you absolutely have to, because you make no offseason transactions. It all comes down to the draft, and you have to hit on these early ones. And so if I would love if they did what they did last year, maybe they get to 12 and there's an offensive lineman they really like that they can get around pick 20. Maybe you trade back and pick up another second round pick and take an offensive lineman later on in the round. I would be really happy with that.
Maybe the Steelers would like to trade with them.
Exactly. Steelers trade up. Cowboy, they get Shador at 12. Cowboys fall back to 20, take an offensive lineman, and get, maybe probably another pick somewhere in the draft.
Pick up an extra pick somewhere. Yeah, I like that.
That's where I'm at. I don't want to go wide receiver early. I don't think those guys are studs like CeeDee Lamb.
I agree. Like, very rarely is a team a wide receiver away from being a contender. Right. You typically, if you're in that spot and you're picking high, you need a lot more than that. Historically, wide receivers drafted in the first round. Now, it's panned out a little bit better in recent years, but typically going that high on a wide receiver, it doesn't put you over the top and get you to the Super Bowl. Very few, like you can literally look over the last 25 years, small percentage of wide receivers drafted in the first round have ever even played in a Super Bowl, let alone won a Super Bowl with the team that drafted them. So I tend to shy away from that, even though it is obviously a much flashier type pick, and people get more excited about that. All right, we will wrap it up with that. Jesse, thanks as always. Thanks to Trevor earlier as well. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Appreciate you being here. Hit the like button if you would. Vince will be with me tomorrow, and so we will roll out the mailbag show since we didn't do a mailbag today, since we had a lot of Marcus Freeman comments from his press conference on the quarterbacks earlier today. Again, hit that like button, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.